The Garden Gurus Live is brought to you by Garden Forte. Garden are Australia's leading mailing service, offering a wide range of quality gardening products. Each week on the Garden Gurus Live, the team at Garden Express will share a weekly offer. So make sure after today's show, you jump online and visit their website.
Trevor is the leading supplier of controlled release fertilisers and micronutrients, and it's committed to delivering environmentally friendly solutions for your garden. Each week we'll be giving away a Trevor prize pack valued at $250. Simply follow, like and comment the weekly code word on Trevor's Facebook page. Hello, welcome to the Garden Gurus Live. I'm Trevor. Well, you'll see my background is a little bit different to what we normally have each week, and it's because I am here in Singapore. Now, you'll know that we've been up here progressively filming, I suppose, the tropical version of the Garden Garden Gurus up here, and I'm just back up with the team, having a bit of a look at how the first season went. It's just completed. And at the same time, I dragged the family up so we could enjoy a little bit of Singapore. But I wasn't going to miss out on this opportunity to catch up with you guys. And for all those people who guessed, you are absolutely right. Kang and Lynn, thank you very much. It's great. It's great to have you all with me. I'm, of course, here to help you with your garden questions. And there's been some fantastic questions and photographs come through during the week. Of course, each week we also do something very special, and that is we make sure that we have a special offer for you. For something to put into your garden that's very meaningful, and we have got something pretty cool coming up very, very soon with our friends from Garden Express. Rowan will be joining us. You do have this opportunity today again, of course, to win a $50 voucher for the best question for the day, and there is a $250 Trevor garden pack that'll give you all the fertiliser your garden needs for the next 12 months if you can win. We've got the details of what that catchword is a bit later on. But right up front, let's see, have we got Rowan with us? Are we able to actually bring him in? Of course, Shaylee's back in Perth, and yep, she's organised that, and Rowan's in Melbourne. Isn't it wonderful what we can do, mate, these days? We can be anywhere in the world.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. And Rowan, last week we talked about gerberas, and I've had a number of people who have told me during the week that they got their orders in nice and early, and that they've got gerberas going in around their, I think I must have mentioned roses last week, and that they've got them going in around their roses, yeah.
Yeah, great. I'm glad that they got in early because I don't think there's very many left. But perfect for our roses. Perfect companion plant.
Completely rare to be able to get those long cut flower forms. That was the thing I think that most people didn't realise. They're not like the little pot gerberas that you'll often see. These are super special.
Yeah, absolutely, and very popular. So well and truly. I think there's a few individual varieties, but all the collections that we mentioned last week, they've all sold out, which we expected to happen.
Which is, not surprising. You guys, you find some pretty cool stuff. And one of the things that I thought was, super special was the dendrobium orchids. Now, most people, I'm in the tropics, and the tropics are home to dendrobium orchids, but there's also native dendrobium orchids in Australia as well. So, the ability to have this particular species of orchid is quite unique.
Yeah. These ones are super special. I think they're probably one of the easiest orchids to grow and have continuing flowering. But these ones are particularly special. We've got together with one of our growers, and we've actually been able to crossbreed colours to get some of these spectacular colours that you're seeing there on the screen. So all of the collections that we've got available, plus some individual ones, are all made up of crossbreed colours, which, I don't know if we've got some vision of the actual ones that are available. I might pop in
there we go.
A link into the chat, but they are some spectacular colours coming through.
Yeah, they look amazing. They're really healthy plants. Look at them in those tubes.
Yeah, I've got one here because they're looking really, really amazing. So very, very, very healthy, and yeah, looking amazing.
For those people who don't know the Australian rock orchid, which it is a dendrobium, it's nothing like the tropical forms.
Yeah.
It's basically there's two species, Speciosum and Kingianum. They're the most common varieties. The Sydney rock orchid is often what they're commonly called.
Yeah.
And they're a remarkable plant. They grow in just about any kind of conditions, but they love being in a shaded position. So for anybody who's actually got a position in that's shaded by a building, or if they've got a big tree, they want to get these growing in and around the base. You can create the most amazing effect by using these, and they work really, really well with other plants such as bromeliads and other shade lovers as well. So when you get the mix right, and these are in flower, it is just stunning.
Yeah, it really, really is. I know we touched on the fact that these are crossbred for colours. So when the viewers do jump on the website, you'll notice that we've got pictures of both the parents, so you can see where they've come from. But obviously, when it does flower, it's going to be a mixture of the two, which is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and the thing with hybridized plants is that you do get variation as well. So you whilst you might be getting some select colors, you may well get a sport which is completely unique, which is something else. Jeanette Miller brought up that she loves them but she can't grow them. Well, the growing conditions, the best growing conditions for them, Rowan, have you got a bit of advice there?
Like you said, shaded area is good. These guys will grow in pots perfectly, pots and hanging baskets. We've seen some of these because they do cascade. Some of the varieties look really, really nice in a hanging basket. Low humidity. They don't like too much humidity. So these are
is the significant difference between the tropical forms that you'll find in a place like Singapore and these Australian ones, which makes them so good.
Yeah, protect them from frost, obviously, but they will be relatively drought tolerant. So once they're established, it's kind of hard to kill them. You've just got to be careful that the flower spikes, when they do start to spike, aren't frost. Frost will knock those over
damage them.
Quickly. But other than that, they're relatively easy to grow. So sorry that you can't grow them. Or had no luck growing them, but I think if you're prepared to give it a go, this is the time to do it. So that's a pretty good segue into what we've got on offer this week.
So what is the offer, mate? Because I just want to say this before you go telling everybody.
Yep.
I'm placing the first order, so
okay.
Just want to make it really clear straight up front. I don't want to miss out.
Yes. So I'll make sure I put some aside. So we've actually got 5 collections of 4 different plants.
Wow.
So that's 4 different plants that are made up of 16 different plants, basically. So like you said, the variation in the flowering colours and stuff could vary from even what you see on our website, because we're sometimes not exactly sure what it's going to look like. But either way, it's going to look stunning. So 5 collections, 4 plants, 4 50ml tubes, this sort of quality. So you're getting a nice, well-established plant. Mixture of colours. I mean, I could go into all the different colours, but I think probably best if I drop a link into the chat once we finish up here, people can go and have a look at themselves. But
we'll pop it up.
4 plants in each. They're normally $67.50 down to $54. So you're going to get 4 plants for just $54.
Wow, for orchids, that's a remarkable price. That's really good.
There is one that's a little bit more special than the other one. Still going to get a 20% saving, but that one is actually down to $60.40. So
okay. So these are the latest and greatest, breeding results, and this is the chance for people. I would imagine there's probably not a huge amount of stock available, so there's a good opportunity for people to get in quick. If they rush in, they won't miss out.
You're Yeah, you're going to need to, guys. I think a little bit earlier in the year, we put a few of these, not collections, so not the value that we're seeing here today, but we put a few of them up for sale and they sold out overnight. So you really are going to have to get in quickly if you want to secure the stock.
Oh, great.
I guess that's the beauty of this show, Trev, is the guys that tune in get to get a bit of a sneak preview. And they can get their orders in nice and early so that they don't miss out, because like last week, I'm sure when the show goes to air this week, these are going to sell out pretty quickly.
First in, first served, best dressed, right? Hey, I've got a question for you, Rowan. It's a great deal, but Frances Rutty, who is a big supporter of ours from Shepparton in Victoria, has got a question for you. She'd like to buy the Maximilian sunflower, but she can't get it here, which I'm assuming is in Melbourne. Do you think you could supply it, or maybe she could find it and you could order it for her?
We can definitely have a look to see if we can find it. What we do find with sunflowers in particular, that we sell most of the seed, mostly sunflowers in seed, so not as a growing plant. It doesn't tend to ship as well as some of the other plants that we do ship.
Doesn't take long to get the seed up, though. That's the good thing about sunflowers.
That's perfect with the sunflower. It's going to grow pretty quickly. I will need to do a little bit of research and see what we can do as far as the Maximilian goes. I'll try and have an answer by the end of the show.
That's great, mate. Hey, listen, that's fantastic. And look, this is one of the great things about Garden Express, is that most people don't realise, but you're not some giant, e-portal, giant company. You are a family company. There's multiple generations working in the garden industry who knows it inside out. You guys have still got farms where you're growing things. We didn't have David with us this morning, and I think Chloe's in Japan at the moment. But it's just a lovely family business. You're part of the family as well.
I'm Dave's brother-in-law, Chloe's uncle. So there's a fair few of us that are still working in the business, which is really, really great. But like you say, it's hands-on. So whatever needs to be done, we're all out there doing bits and pieces. Viewers will know me as the marketing manager, but it's not just that. I'm often out there packing plants and doing bits and pieces as well. So it's
I know amongst some of the staff you're also known as the dinosaur there, but I think that's because of the outfit that you wear at the show, right?
Yes, that's true. So they do call me the dinosaur. We've got a really nice big dinosaur suit that I pop on to promote Bloomin Pine. Obviously, we'll talk about that in the coming weeks. At
the Melbourne International Flower and Garden Show, Rowan was all dressed up. The kids loved it. It was a pretty compelling costume too. That thing. It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
It is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
We tried because it gets quite hot in there. And when people see this, they'll understand what I mean. But at the flower show in particular, we tried to go out and do a walk for maybe 20 minutes, half an hour, so I don't get too hot. But by the time you walk around, take photos, and all of the hype that goes around the suit, it's an hour and a half before you get back. But a lot of fun.
That's good fun, mate. Hey, listen, I'm not going to let you go. There's one more question.
Yes.
Jeannie Napier, she's over here in Perth, and it's a good question. I think there'd be people across the country that would have this at times.
Yeah.
She wants to know if ordering plants online from you, if that's the case, do they have to go through quarantine in Perth?
Yes, they do. There's a $4 fee that we add on to Perth and Tassie for quarantine. So all plants need to go through quarantine. But it's we pick up most of that cost. There's just a small cost of $4 that goes on top of your, and it's just added into the shipping. It does go through quarantine. It's a relatively quick process. Trevor, you've received plants from us in the past.
All the time.
It doesn't affect the plant or anything like that. It's just a quick check.
This is the beauty of what you guys do, and a lot of people, we don't go behind the scenes. As I said to you, there's this perception that you're a big website, and that suddenly these plants come out of a box or a rack or a nursery or something and just go straight off. But in actual fact, you guys have your own nursery on site. Plants come in, they're cared for on site. It's effectively a quarantine facility, kept free of pests, and then that gives you certification with the state quarantine departments, the various ag departments, and then of course you then on ship, and And that $4 would be purely for somebody just to run a quick inspection across those plants as they come in.
All plants that come into WA in particular are dipped, so they all get dipped to make sure that not that there's generally pests, but it's just another level of security just to make sure. WA being so diverse in the plants that you've got over there, we don't want anything getting in there that's is a little bit nasty. So we dip everything. It all goes through that process just to protect. It's all about biosecurity, really.
Yep. Well, look, we're getting a few comments, mate. Jeannie, hopefully that answers your question. It was a really good question because it's actually something that I think probably a lot of people have in the back of their mind. This is the beautiful thing about you guys is that you handle all of those things in the background, deliver these plants top quality, they arrive at your doorstep, and of course you can shop 24/7. There's never been a more convenient way to buy garden plants.
No, and I think we are one of the only online nurseries that do have the certification to deliver right around the country. Not saying we're the only one, but we are definitely one of the only ones. Some people can deliver to eastern states, but not WA and Tasmania, which are the two states that have those a little bit stronger quarantine restrictions. We can deliver all around the country.
The biosecurity thing is a really important thing. We are getting a lot of people at the moment, Rowan, asking for some possible photographs or a little bit of video footage of you in the dinosaur suit.
Yes, I can probably manage that.
All right, well, we might share that a bit later on. Mate, great deal again. These Dendrobium orchids will not last, so folks, jump in and get them while you can. Rowan, thanks so much again for joining us today.
It's always a pleasure, mate. We'll catch up with you next week.
Cool. That's great. Wow. That's a really good deal. And I should have said, don't forget mine, because I love those orchids. They really are. They're probably of all the plants, the easiest of orchids to grow, and they will just repeat flower year in, year out. They are fantastic. All right. We have got a really good show coming up. We've got a lot of questions flowing in, and there's been a few that have carried through from the previous week too. So I think we might roll into answering some of these questions, Shaylee, and we can keep throwing things out. I've got one here which was an important one. Diane Cossa. Now I do remember this. She asked a question about a lemon tree about 6 weeks ago. It had dropped all its foliages, but was flowering, and she was concerned about it. It looks like it's coming back, so it looks like new leaves are coming, but it's also flowering at the same time, and that's perfectly natural. So there's nothing to worry about there, I suppose, is the important thing. Beck Plowman of West Victoria, she wanted to know whether you can grow a lotus vine up a fence, or does it only grow down? Well, the lotus is really a ground cover. So not so much the spreading form. It is a ground cover that's great in a hanging basket. It can be trained up a fence if you put a trellis to it, but it's not really what it does. It's not so much that. Jenny Napier, who we just had answered a question from, but she sent us a picture. Got a tomato that's developing lumps on the stem, and it looks like gall wasp is. It is still fruiting. Is there anything that can be done? Now have a look at this. This is a really interesting photograph. This is actually an interesting thing where it received bud damage to the growth bud, and that's just caused it to swell up basically the nodes where the leaves are coming out, and there's no new growth emerging from that spot. You can see there's fruit below. The question is whether it's going to send out some shoots from above that. Now, sometimes this is caused by a mite. It's not a very common thing at all. Usually it's a mechanical damage situation. So it's a good question, Jenny. The thing is, this plant will have to grow its way out naturally itself, and that's the only way it'll recover from that. But what you're seeing is the after effects of that original bud damage, which is quite interesting. But yeah, the plant itself actually looks healthy, so I think it'll probably just grow out of it. What an interesting thing. Yelly Evanthus, hello Yelly, you're in South Melbourne, pruning, the pruning of lilac bushes. You want to know a little bit more about it. Do I remove the dead flower heads and some of the stems when pruning? Absolutely. In fact, if you take the dead flower heads off your lilacs, what's going to happen is it's just going to push all the energy, instead of trying to produce seed, into producing more growth. And as long as you're trying to get them, you want them to continue to get bushier and bigger, then that's a terrific way to go. The other thing is that if you're happy with the plants themselves, you don't have to prune them. So just keep that in mind. So they don't necessarily have to be pruned, but taking out the old flowers is a good way to go. Grazia Campisi, I hope I got it right. We have gone to Queensland. We're in Surface Paradise. You sent us some photographs. What's happening to my hydrangea? It was beautiful, big, full, lush, huge pink flowers, and now it's woody and purple dry leaves, and it does look like it's dried out. What I couldn't see from this photograph is a close-up of the leaves themselves, but there is one, and you can see it's turned over. It's down the bottom of the photograph, and it's turned over, and it looks brown. Now, that would be an indication. I'd love to see a close-up photograph of the leaves that you might have a mite problem. And two-spotted or red spider mite is a common thing to attack hydrangeas. And the first thing that will happen is it attacks under the leaves, and it will cause the leaves to drop. And this appears like what you've got here. So to me, it's one of two things. It's dried out. Even then, they tend to sort of bounce back and recover. Or it's got red spider mite. Now, if it's got red spider mite, you can do one of two things. You can spray it, and you'll need a systemic insecticide, which you'll get from your local garden centre. But the other thing you could do, well, there's two things actually. You could do that, or you could get a predatory mite in. So jump online, Google the good bugs, and you'll find that you can get predatory mites for the red spider mite. And these mites will come in and they literally predate and kill it off. And it's a natural balance. So it saves you having to spray chemicals. But when it's as severe as this, I tend to think you're probably going to have to spray first up, and then maybe think about mites a bit later on as far as predatory mites go. The most important thing probably now is to give that plant, after treating the insect, give that plant a good water with some sea salt, and just get a bit of recovery going on. You want those roots to be healthy again, and follow it up with some controlled release fertilizer. And again, probably something like the Trevor product or Power Feed, but something that's got microbes in that as well to try and stimulate healthy root growth and healthy plant. Okay, let's have a look. Macy Hag, hello Macy. You're in Queensland as well, so we're having a lot of activity in Melbourne and Queensland at the moment. I was wanting to know what kind of pawpaw grows in pots from cuttings. I live in southeast Queensland. Well, interestingly enough, I've never had success growing pawpaws from cutting. It's just too easy to grow them from seed. So and the trick is you can grow them in pots. They do grow really well. In fact, I've got some in my brand new glass house, and they're just starting to take off now. Now, I actually have 2 per pot, but typically if you had a large pot, about a 500 mil probably would be a minimum, I would think, and quite a deep pot, you could put 3 plants into that. Now, you can either buy them as small plants. Cutting, you could try. I'm not sure. I've never seen them grown from cutting. Or the last alternative, of course, is just grab some seeds, scatter 5 or probably maybe 10 seeds in there, let them germinate on the surface of the soil, and then just pick out all the little weak ones, and the 3 biggest ones, leave them, and they will compete against each other. And the best thing about it is that not all pawpaws are bisexual. In other words, they have male and female flowers that pollinate naturally on the plant. Some of them are asexual, so they'll have one, they'll be male or they'll be female. But if you've got 3 in a pot, you're almost guaranteed that you're going to have a cross-pollinator going on. So you'll always end up with fruit coming through. So a little bit of advice there with pawpaws. Hopefully that helps. And thanks for joining us, Macy. Anne Clark, hello. I've got several crabapple trees, but they're all sending up suckers. How do I stop this? You're in Paradise in Adelaide in South Australia, which is a beautiful part of the world. And it's a good question. This is one of the big mistakes a lot of people make, and plants naturally that are grafted do often have suckers this time of the year. How you treat those suckers will determine whether you have problems with this in the future or not. And what I mean by that is if you get the secateurs out and you cut them off, you will find that you'll get regrowth of those suckers and the rootstock will always be popping up. However, if you grab them and you pull them off the stem, so you literally rip them away from the base where they're either the base of the stem, or if they're coming up out of the soil, You pull them away, you blind any buds around the outside. So there'll be no regrowth in that space. So it's probably one of those things that you need to keep in mind when you are, there's a lot of activity going on here, when you are treating it. Make sure you pull them away. It's a really, really good way to go. Lynn Menenju Ryan, hello. Can you do a rain dance for us? Badly needed here on the Gold Coast. But there's a cyclone. I haven't seen the weather for a couple of days. So there's a cyclone about to hit Queensland. Well, that might change things just a little bit. You might go from famine to feast. So be careful what you wish for, Lynn. But a bit of rain is pretty handy, and it's bizarre, isn't it? You know, it was only a year ago we were talking about how everything was saturated and sodden, and now today we're in this situation where there are a lot of very dry places around the country. Okay, Anna Kuhneman. I hope I got that right, Anna. You're in Brisbane, so you're getting a lot of activity out of Queensland today, which is fantastic. How can I get my rosemary to grow better? Interestingly enough, rosemary really does like conditions where it's more, let's say, Mediterranean, a little drier. So it really does enjoy the dry. It doesn't like humidity. Brisbane can get quite humid at times, so the outcome of that can be quite a weak plant. I'm not sure how to best describe it, but not as robust as they would be in cooler climates. The key with it is drainage. So ventilation, so good air movement. So in an open spot, grow them in pots and make sure that you've got a really good quality potting mix. And that's going to give you your best chance to get really good rosemary growing. And there is nothing quite like rosemary, particularly fresh, used in cooking. So, yeah, I think everybody should have at least a pot of it at home somewhere. Jeanette Miller, hello. Can you attract native bees to your garden? If so, what's the best plants, please? Or is it a case if you don't have them now, you won't? It's a good question. You're in Pingelly in sort of the south of WA, or south of Perth anyway. It's interesting, Jeanette. It's a good question. The southwest of Western Australia doesn't have a huge number of native bees, interestingly enough. The north seems to have quite a few, but you will find the blue and you'll find some of the unusual ones sitting around there. So the trick to getting them to come in, it's probably making sure that you've got lots and lots of nectar producing plants. And more often than not, in the area where you live, it needs to be the varieties that are providing flower consistently throughout the year. So grevilleas, particularly banksias, really important plants to have in your garden. So if you don't have a lot of them and you want to bring in native bees, then use those kinds of flowering plants and you'll find that you'll end up with a great result. Hopefully that helps with that. There's certainly a lot of questions coming through at present. Okay, now let's go. Stephen Greshchuk. I hope I got that right, Stephen. You're in Melbourne, in Victoria. Can you please help me? I've got a green gauge plum tree and it's close to the end of fruiting. Every year we get this terrible smell. Yeah, you told us about this before, Stephen. That's a really weird question, isn't it? So from under the tree, basically, or it's next to the house, you start getting this rotten, awful smell, and it's kind of overwhelming. It does indicate that there's some kind of rot or deterioration going on, possibly in the soil, but it shouldn't be coming from the plum tree. It's a really unusual thing. I'm not really sure how I can help you. I'll tell you what I would suggest you do, and it's a very unusual solution. You've probably never heard of this before, but there is this highly absorbent natural rock mineral that you can get your hands on. Now, the interesting thing about this is it's extremely porous, and it has the ability to absorb smells, and it has the ability also to absorb nutrients, and at the same time it also creates a home for bacteria which can convert those things into nutrients available for plants to take up. It's called zeolite, and it comes from a handful of locations around the world. It's a volcanic rock, and it's a really incredible product. If you've got ponds and or even water bowls where, you've got bowls for birds and so on, and you're finding that you're getting algae building up in them. Putting zeolite into the base of those will help absorb excess ammonia. The bacteria will convert that into nutrient that can be taken up by plants or literally dissipate into the atmosphere. And the interesting thing about it is it keeps the water clean. And it's because it is providing a wonderful home for that bacterial base. And, we talk about in soils the importance of microbes, but there is equally important in water as well. So it's a really interesting thing. Get a layer, you'll get it from pond shops, I should clarify that. Generally they sell it in 10 or 20 kg bags. Maybe get a 20 kg bag and spread it evenly over the soil around the base of the tree. Now, it's not going to do anything to the soil, to be quite honest, not an awful lot, but it will hopefully absorb some of that smell, and that might help reduce the impact, because it's a very odd thing, a green gauge plum suddenly leaving you with a terrible smell. I wonder if there's some other option, something else that's going on around there around that time, and it just happens to be the plum is the instigator. Anyway, things to think about. Krista Anderson, hello. Now, you're in Ballarat in Victoria. You got a dendrobium orchid. It didn't flower this year. How can I encourage this for next year? You are in cold Ballarat, which it does get very, very cold during the winter. It's kept close to the house and protected under cover. So you're doing all the right things. One of the things that I do know it does like some bright light as it sort of comes into setting its flower. In fact, a lot of the orchids do. Cymbidiums are the same. And the difficulty with cymbidiums is you want to increase the light intensity, for example, and dendrobiums will be very similar, but you want to do it in February. And the downside to this, of course, is that February tends to be one of the hottest months, and the risk is you could burn those plants. So it's a bit of a catch-22 if you're in that situation and you're not getting flower. The other option is just to plant using a really good soil, ideally keep them in pots, but then fertilise them with a high K fertiliser. That's one that promotes flower, and maybe you'll find that it'll just be a trigger for that. One thing that you should avoid with all orchids is very high nitrogen-based fertilisers, because it encourages lots of growth but not lots of flowering, and that's why you can have year in, year out, beautiful healthy plant but no flowers. Hopefully that helps. Okay, let's have a look. Rhonda Douglas, another question about lemons, and it's a very similar sort of pattern. When you're in cooler climates, this occurs quite a bit. Rowville, Victoria. Rhonda, her son's got a lemon tree. It's bearing fruit, but it's got no leaves. Now, that's an indication that it's really hungry. It needs to be fed. Now, all citrus are what I would call gross feeders. They require a very complex diet, and they require a regular supply of nutrients. So, you just have to think about that. So, feed it now. That's really important, and that'll support the development of the fruit, and of course regrowth of leaves. That's probably the most important thing. Tan Wei Jian, hello Tan, hello Wei. It's Wei, isn't it? Sorry. Hey mate, what have you got? Why do Driscolls make blueberries that are so much sweeter than we can grow at home? Do they have industrial secrets? That's a good question, actually, Wei. The truth of the matter is that blueberries are sweeter when they're grown with full sun, when they get like full sun. A lot of commercial varieties are actually grown in a sort of shade house, a white shade cloth environment, and that actually encourages reflection, this reflection of light coming in from all different angles, and it can actually mean that the fruit itself can be sweet. It depends on where they're grown, though, of course, that's the key. And adding, if you want to sweeten any kind of fruit, adding sulfate of potash to your soil, just as the fruit sets, will really help in sweetening it up. So, good question, Wayne. Surprising, but very good question. Another question from Yelly. You're in, obviously, South Melbourne in Victoria. No, we've done this one. We've already done Yelly's question. Cynthia Bateman's in Marion in South Australia. Now, let's have a look at this. This is a good question because it comes with a photograph. And remember, you can send us photos. In fact, I might get Shay after this question to play how you do it, just so that you can see what needs to be done. This is a Kintia palm, and it's an indoor plant. It's positioned by the lounge room windows behind vertical blinds. Treated for mealybugs and spider mite with a systemic insecticide. But have a look at that. That is a classic case of red spider mite damage, and it's very severe. Those leaves will not recover. What I wouldn't do is cut them off at this moment in time. I'd make sure you're treating that plant. I'd be interested to know what your systemic insecticide was that you've used on that, because I'm not so sure it was overly effective. But what I would do is, it looks like it's outside, I would be giving it another application. Interesting thing about red spider mite is it tends to lay its eggs in the soil and surf the soil around the base of the plant, and they will hatch and re-emerge and move up the leaves of that plant very, very quickly every 14 days. So to break the breeding cycle, you need to spray 3 times, so every 14 days. So I would say over 6 weeks, 3 sprays, and you'll break the cycle and you will kill off that. But that is a very severe case. So folks, if you've seen that anywhere in your garden, you need to treat that plant and the plants immediately around the outside with a systemic insecticide. It's vitally important. Okay, well, let's maybe have a bit of a roll over to that clip on how you post photos, just to show you, because it really does help me an awful lot when I'm answering your questions. Have you got a gardening question you'd like us to answer and you need to send us a photo? Well, simply head to our Facebook page and click on message. Type out your question and click the camera icon to take a photo in the app. Or click the image option and select the image you want to send us. Be sure to allow Facebook access to your camera and camera roll. We check our messages regularly, so sit back and be sure to tune in to the Garden Gurus Facebook Live show every Friday, and you'll hear your answer. Okay, well, there you go. It's a pretty easy thing to do. Just post your photos with us and we'll do our very best. Now, don't get angry if I don't respond to you immediately. I am on holidays this week, but I'm still joining you this morning. But we do get some people who get very upset because we didn't come back to them the same day. We will answer you within the week, though. So, and ideally, do it in a way that, hopefully that we end up in a situation where we're giving you answers within sort of 5 to 7 days, which gives you time to actually solve it. All right, there are lots of questions coming through, and we've really actually had a wonderful, a lot of activity coming out of Queensland today. And it continues on. Lisa Baker, you are in Queensland. You have sent us some photos. Can I tell you what is wrong with my spider agapanthus? Now, have a look at that. Now, this is actually, it's interesting, your terminology. It's the sacred lily of the Incas, Hymenocallis festalis. It's a beautiful plant, and it's often known as the spider flower, the spider lily. And this sort of damage is caused, again, by an insect that needs to be treated with a systemic insecticide. There are no real effective natural predators, unfortunately, for this particular pest. It's mealybug, and it's right in the heart of the plant. And as the leaves start emerging, they're damaging those leaves. And what you're seeing is the leaf opens to its full extent. You can see the full extent of the damage, and it's really quite severe. So again, I would suggest a systemic insecticide would be the most effective way to do it. I previously would have treated with Confidor. It's now pretty much not on the market anymore, but there are some other very good options out there that you should consider. But that's a really good question, and it's a really good example of something that needed a photograph, because one is the common names do vary, and that means that that sometimes, to call it a spider agapanthus, I understand why you did, but it is a common name, and I might have had the wrong information for you. So thank you for doing that and for letting us know where you are from. Lisa Baker in Queensland, great job. Wendy Ann, you're in Canning Vale. Wow, I think it might be our second question from WA. At what stage do I need to cover my apricots to stop the fruit fly getting to them? Great question. So the only way you're going to stop them from getting to fruit is going to be fruit exclusion netting, if you're going to use that kind of thing, which is kind of a bit like, shea cloth, I suppose, wrapped around the outside of the fruit and stopping the fruit fly from actually getting in. Interestingly enough, you probably, I would say, about now, because I'm just starting to spray my apricots In fact, we're doing it this morning back in Perth. I've got a couple of the guys from the garden team who are working on that. But yeah, we'll spray them weekly. I've kind of given up because the trees are huge on being able to put netting around each individual fruit. It's a little bit too laborious, and I've got a huge garden. It's a couple of acres. So really, what we need to do in my situation is to bait, to put fruit fly traps out, and to spray. And the combination of three should keep the fruit fly apricots, which are the most vulnerable of all the fruit that you could possibly have. So about now is what I'm saying to you. Okay, let's have a bit of a look. I'm getting a cryptic one here from Shaylee, who's passing these messages through. But I need you to scroll back up, Shaylee, because I'm not quite seeing the question from the beginning, so I can't tell what it is. Okay, Krista Anderson. We've got a clematis that's growing through a crack in the concrete. Now, I've cut it to the ground many times, but it's persistent. Never gets any water or fertilizer, yet it loves life and fights super hard. Isn't it funny how that occurs? So you want to try and propagate it. Seed germination is hit and miss with that, and you recognise that. You could layer it. So layering is a really interesting thing to do. When would you suggest I give this method a try? I've tried cuttings last year with no luck. Oh, interestingly enough, it didn't work from cutting. I was going to suggest cutting. Layering is a thing where you're damaging the bark to the extent where you're exposing the cambium layer underneath that bark. Then you use some rooting hormone or powder. You can use a gel or powder. Both of them are highly effective. And dust over or just wipe over the area that you've scarred. Grab some cocoa peat, wrap it around the outside, and grab some Glad wrap and wrap around that so that it's tight around the whole plant. Squeeze it in so that moist cocoa peat is in around the stem. And within just a few weeks, you'll see roots will emerge from that area that you've been in. It's called aerial layering, and they'll start to grow into the cocoa peat. Later on, you just cut the stem and plant the whole thing in. It's really interesting. We're going to have to get some special footage after this of Rowan in his dinosaur suit, because he hasn't been able to supply it to us today. So you'll know what we're all talking about later on, because it's a pretty special little promotional suit. It's not little, actually. It's huge, this dinosaur. And Rowan does a great job with it as well. You can see people walking around me at the moment admiring the beautiful gardens at the hotel that I'm in. I'm in the Park Royal Collection. It is here in Marina Bay, and interestingly enough, I'm on the 6th floor, so you can see these spectacular gardens on the roof of the building. What makes this particular building is so good is that it's got more square footage of gardens than it has of buildings. So the footprint of the whole hotel is about 18,000 square metres, and I think that this is about 22,000 square metres of garden, which is the future of buildings. It's pretty fascinating, isn't it? So, and you can see how pretty it is and how beautiful, lush and green. And we are in the dry season here in Singapore. We're not in the wet season. We're actually sort of moving. It is building the build-up. I can see the build-up occurring, but we're still really coming out of dry things. Now, my next question is a really good one, because just yesterday, as I was about to leave my garden in Perth, one of the plants that was coming through is a plant called Draculus. It's it's a very interesting lily. It has this massive flower, and it's also known as the corpse flower. It's unlike everything else that you expect to have beautiful fragrance from. This one has this rotting meat fragrance to it, which attracts blowflies. And it does that to attract them to act as the pollinator. Now, Sue Smith in Adelaide has got one. It's blossoming again. During the years when this happens, my cacti are blossoming too. Do you know the original name of the purple, absolutely beautiful Mediterranean stinker? And I think it's the Draculus that you're talking about, this corpse flower. It's a really interesting plant. It's a quite fascinating flower, and I might get some photos for you next week and share on the show, just so you know what we're talking about. Really interesting. Okay, let's keep rolling with your questions, because there's a lot of them and a lot still coming out of Queensland. You guys must be pretty active up there. What is the best bit of gardening advice you've ever received? And this is from Penelope Dana in Queensland. Well, when I first started as a horticulturalist, a long time ago, I'm not going to give away the years, but a long time ago, there was a very, very prominent Queensland garden expert, a guy by the name of Colin Campbell. He was on Gardening Australia, Col, and he was a great bloke, a really good bloke, and a very, very competent horticulturalist and agronomist. He's originally trained at Massey University in New Zealand, and was a very, very smart man and very practical. And he came to Western Australia, and of course, Perth is dramatically different to Queensland. And he was looking at the environment that we were dealing with. And one of the challenges that we have is that we need to, within our soils, in sandy soils, make sure that we've got a very good calcium supply, particularly for plants like cucurbits and the solanums, things like tomatoes. Otherwise, they get blossom end rot. But putting lime in will throw the pH out. And the pH in Perth is already very alkaline as it is. And Colin was the first one to say, Trevor, don't worry about dolomite, don't worry about garden lime, just go for gypsum. And that was a great bit of advice because, of course, gypsum, which I discovered later, is actually pH neutral. So I could get the calcium into the soil, so I didn't have those disease problems with my plants. So it actually came from a fellow garden expert, I suppose, who unfortunately is not with us these days. He was a great loss, Colin, because he was a wonderful character, very popular and extremely knowledgeable. And he shared that little bit of advice. As far as the general public go, I do get lots of little pearls and gems everywhere I go. Most of the stuff that I really love comes from people who are professional growers, and they know things, and it's really why we created the Garden Gurus. The Garden Gurus was never created to suggest that there is one person that is the guru that knows all. It's actually exactly not what it's about. A guru in Indian culture, of course, is a teacher. And we wanted to share more information, more advice on how to get the best results from gardens. But we wanted to do it in a way that used the latest technology, the latest knowledge, use the experts in the field, people who work in horticulture, work in the garden industry, work as growers, and share that back, because there was no voice in the marketplace to be able to do that. And so we created the Garden Gurus. Now, that's over 21 years ago. It's hard to believe that we've been on Channel 9 for all this period of time. But hey, here we are, and here we are on a Friday morning, or lunchtime for some, actually sharing some more gardening advice. And we're coming up, we've got about 13 minutes to the hour, and then we'll be closing off the live feed. But there's still a heap of questions coming through, so let me answer those for you. Susan Brown, I planted a native hibiscus 2 months ago. You're in the mid-north coast of New South Wales. It's a beautiful part of the world. This hibiscus is producing big, beautiful flowers, but the leaves are yellowing and falling off. Those that grow back are small. I've only given it sea salt. Does it need something else? And the answer is absolutely. Brilliant question, Susan. So what your hibiscus is telling you is what we've also been talking about with another gross feeding plant today, and that is citrus. They need lots of fertilizer. In fact, roses need lots of fertilizer because they're all expending huge amounts of energy to produce those beautiful flowers that we're seeing, or fruit. If we don't sort of do something about that, what we're going to end up with is a situation where the leaves are dropped because the plant's putting the energy into the flower, and then when they regrow leaves, they're small leaves. They're not growing them to the full size. So it's purely a fertilizer thing. So increase your fertilizer, use a high K fertilizer, really important. Okay, now Shay's asked me, would we, oh, actually we did get some dinosaur footage of Rowan in his costume. Before we go to the plant of the week, let's have a look at Oh no, it's not coming up though, Shay. Oh, that's a bit of a shame. Oh, well, we'll see if we can find it and share with you a bit later on. He does look great in it. The plant of the week, I wanted to share this with. It's a really, really unusual plant. Now, have you ever fallen in love with blue flowering plants? There's a particular gene in blue flowering plants that makes the flowers blue. It's delphinium, and it's a particular gene, the blue gene, like you'd see in delphiniums, the flowers. It's a true blue gene. And I remember 20 years ago, a Japanese company actually did some genetic engineering, and they moved that gene from delphiniums into roses to try and get the perfect blue rose. They never actually achieved it. They did get a blue, but not really a true blue. But there's one plant that's got the most amazing blue flowers, and this is Shay's plant of the week. Shaylee suggested that we do this because it's one that originates from Western Australia. In fact, it grows commonly in the southwest of Western Australia, and it's absolutely stunning. This is. Can anybody guess it? Come on. Let's see who can guess it first. I'll get in. First in will be our winner, I think, today. Come on. Let's see. Who have we got? It's the Leschenoltia. I can't wait. Sorry. Leschenoltia. It is an amazing flowering plant. Now, it has this beautiful soft blue, but it also has intense blue, and this is the natural variation of this plant. There you go, Jeannie. You were pretty quick. This is probably one of the best when it comes to stunning spring flowers that are blue. And there are a number of selections that are just incredible. This particular one is probably more the wild, the natural selection, Leschenoltia biloba, but there are some special cultivar forms. So what happens is literally the growers will go out or plant selectors will go out into the field and they'll look through thousands of hectares of land searching for the deepest, most beautiful blue colours. Then they'll take cuttings and then they'll grow them, and so it ends up being true to that particular intense blue colour. Or I think, Shay, you might have a nice soft, very, very light blue. There we go. This is one that Shay's found in bushland in and around her, and you can see it there. That's pretty much white. There is just a faint hint of blue, but absolutely gorgeous plant. Now, it's only a tiny little plant. It gets to no more than about 30 centimetres high and about 20 centimetres wide. But if you want to add a blue colour, it's absolutely fantastic. And the good news for those of you out there that have got quite heavy soils is that this grows in a gravelly clay. It's quite an intense laterite gravel soil, and it sort of gives you an indication that this is a plant that once it's established, it doesn't want lots of cultivation around the outside of it. It doesn't want lots of soil movement. It's quite happy to sit in the garden, have leaf litter around the outside. It will flower through the springtime, usually right up until maybe the first month anyway of summer, and then it'll sort of just grow and do its own thing during the summer months and through the winter when it'll return with beautiful flowers. That's our flower of the week, Leschenoltia, and that one is a West Australian native, and you can see it's just a gorgeous blue colour. Isn't that lovely? All right. And Shay's just given us a few little fun facts about the gravelly and sandy soils. It is a really interesting plant as well because it doesn't live long. A lot of those sorts of native plants, Hibbertias and so on, can actually live for 60, 70, 100 years. And they'll only be a little tiny shrub, and you'll never realise just how old they are. But in this particular case, these guys live for about 4 to 6 years. They grow readily from cuttings. So once you find one that you like, you can take tip cuttings after they have finished flowering. And there you go. Now, let's keep rolling along. I'm not sure, Chrissy, where you are from. Chrissy at Henry's, but I would say to you that just make sure you're telling us what area you're from, because it does help me when I'm answering questions. Trevor, what's a good product for keeping my veggies from being eaten? Generally caterpillars. Okay, well, the best probably is Dipel or Success. Both of them use what we describe more like a bactericide. So it's more a bacteria base, and what it does is it gets into the gut of the caterpillar, stops it working. They basically just don't eat anymore, and as such, they don't do any further damage. It's particularly important if you're growing brassicas. That's any members of or the crucifer family. So that's any members like broccoli, cauliflower, kale, any of those guys. This will be a good way to keep the caterpillars off them, and I use it at home myself all the time. Kang Lo, you are in Perth. Hello. Yeah, you sent us some photos, Trevor. Followed your advice not to remove flower stems when they appeared about 2 months ago. My tree is now fully loaded with them. Want to know, is it too late to spray with mancozeb for anthracnosis? I noticed some on the stems. Now take a look at that. All right, so it's a good sign. Tree actually looks pretty good. Kang, that's not an unhealthy tree at all. Anthracnose is a disease, so it's a bacterial disease, and so you have to use really copper-based sprays, not so much mancozeb. If you're going to do it, you could actually do a combination mancozeb and a copper-based spray. So you do one, then do one again. It should wipe them out, because really anthracnose is only a real problem during cold weather conditions, and that's really, we're just about out of that in Perth. Just starting to get into some decent sort of warm weather when the mango will really take off. So you could give it a spray, and what it will do is stop any damage of those flower stems, so that fruit can evolve and come back. But yeah, it's that sort of black scarring, and you'll see it on the leaves, particularly on growth shoots. It's a really common thing, anthracnose. All right, now the last question. I can't believe she's done this. Comes from Shaylee. I went for a walk in the bush and found some cute wildflowers. Could you ID this one for them? Yeah, so there's a lot of different flowers out there. This is Conostylus. So there's a few different types of these, and I have planted quite a few in recent times in commercial gardens, and they're lovely. Normally, you wouldn't see this white with this little pink edge to it. It's gorgeous, but typically yellow is the one that I would be seeing. And there's a bunch of these in and around sort of bushland growing naturally in Western Australia, along with plants like the rice flower at the moment, and some of the native grevilleas are just starting to come through and really put on some beautiful flowers. It's a great time of the year, Shay, and it's probably really the important message here is to get out and go for a walk in the bushland, because the conditions are perfect. It's usually not too hot, but you will also see all the plants at their absolute peak, and don't they look gorgeous? That is just a stunning little plant. Any other photos you might have for us, Shay? We'll have a look, see what she comes up with. All right. Well, look, I think that's about it for today's show. We've had a lot of questions. We still have some coming through, but I will answer them for you next week. I'm going to take some time off over the next few days, and I'll be back in the office in the middle of next week, and we'll be doing the Garden Gurus Live from Perth. Now, Jeannie Napier, you came up with the best question I thought of the day. So you win our $50 Garden Express voucher. Congratulations. Go shopping, Jenny. Enjoy it. Now, what about code word? We do need that code word for Troforte, for the Troforte competition. Just so you know, what you do with this is you go to the Troforte Facebook page, put in the code word if you're friends with them already. If you're not friends with them, friend them and share it with your friends. Put your code word in. You'll be in the running to win a $250 Troforte fertilizer gift hamper. What a great prize. So the keyword is gardener. Pop that up there, gardener. How's that? There we are. So there we go. Pop that into the Facebook page for the guys at Troforte. They're looking to build up their friends. They share lots of great advice and knowledge. Their product is amazing, and it's amazing because of those incredible beneficial soil microbes that are encrusted around the controlled release fertilizer. Really unique way of thinking about caring for your garden, because you're actually looking after the soil. I hope that today's session's been good. I've spent a bit of time explaining some things through with you, so you have a good understanding as to why we recommend the things we do and what the background is behind that. And that's the beauty about being able to spend, a solid hour with you each week. I really do appreciate you joining us. I'm kind of conscious that we've been trying the Friday mornings, and it may or may not be convenient to many of you. I would love to see you give us your feedback. Is there a time that's better for you? Would you prefer that we went in the afternoon on a Friday and gives you time to be home? I'm not sure. Tell us what you think. We'd love to get your advice. And of course, remember, we have the Garden Gurus coming up this Saturday on Channel 9 right across the country at 4:30 p.m. It is packed full of brilliant gardening advice. We've got some really cool stories coming up. Even better than that, if you want to know anything else, anything that we weren't able to answer today, and you're looking for a good gardening resource, visit our website. It's thegardengurus.tv, or just stay tuned in to our Facebook page. We're sharing stuff all the time. Right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks so much. So many of you saying hello, and thanks for saying we'll enjoy the holidays. I'm going to take a few days off, a little bit of work maybe here and there, but most of it just enjoying this beautiful place that is Singapore. If you haven't been here, you should come and check it out. If you do come to check it out, can I recommend that you stay at the Park Royal Collection in Marina Bay. It is absolutely beautiful. All right, we'll see you later. I'm Trevor Cochrane. We'll catch you next week.